Did you know that billions of dollars will come into blockchain gaming in the coming years? It will change the financial futures of thousands of people. Will yours be one of them? I hope so. Let's talk about why there will be so much money in blockchain gaming and why some projects will have 100Xs and some will even have 1000Xs and some won't do well at all. What is that secret sauce that will make some do incredibly well and others totally fail? Stay tuned. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. And if you like money in crypto and you're looking for a real investor take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. I'm a venture capitalist myself, and I'm going to talk more about venture capital investing today. Realize it or not, many of you are venture capitalists. Now, do note I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself, and I do own or plan to own much of what I talk about on this channel. In fact, most of what I talk about on this channel. I don't talk about crypto projects I don't believe in. We want to thank our Patreon members. We do have a private Discord that our Patreon members get access to. Now, make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. In the last bear market, I spent a lot of time thinking about blockchain gaming and even going back into gaming to brush up on what were some of the latest trends in gaming and MMOs so I could get an idea where blockchain gaming was going to go. Before we get into gaming specific investments, I want to address crypto investing in general. As crypto investors, think of yourself like a venture capitalist investor because that's what you are. In stocks and company equity, the public is shut off from the early rounds of investing unless you're what they call an accredited investor. And by the time a company goes public for their initial public offering, already the early investors have made sometimes 100x, 500x, 1000x on their initial investment. And often that initial public offering is an exit by the VCs, essentially dumping on the heads of the public. Oh, and yes, this is the preferred route for the US Securities and Exchange Commission because it is deemed as safe. Does that mean that the stock that you buy at the IPO can't go to zero? No, it can still happen. But your chances for 100x and 1000x are much, much lower, though also your chances for it going to zero are somewhat lowered. Now, can you see why the SEC doesn't like crypto? Despite what the SEC wants, crypto currently is blowing those doors open to the public for good and for bad. For good, meaning you're in a position to have massive early project growth gains. And for bad, meaning just like what VCs experience, some of your investments will fail. The more you understand what is likely to do well, the higher the percentage of your picks that will perform. Okay, so let's talk about blockchain gaming specifically. Looking at blockchain gaming as it stands, a few projects have already made incredible gains and numbers showing that the right ingredients in a game can bring tons of players and funds. Fair to say Axie Infinity is the leader, even though it's pulled back like most everything. There's also Peg Axie, which races horses. Let me just share my screen. And for those, most of you are probably familiar with these. This is Peg Axie here, and you could race these horses, and the better horse you have, the more higher chance of winning, etc. This is Axie Infinity. Specifically, I invested in the land in the early sale when it actually just launched, and I bought some of these Mystic plots, and they were going for 1 ETH each, which at the time was about $80 US. You can see now the lowest one is going for 17,177, and then it scales up pretty quickly to over $20,000. Pretty good ROI, wouldn't you say? Yeah. Why is the question that we're here to address. Now, these aren't the only ones to do well. There's other games like Splinterlands. Oh, you probably couldn't even see those numbers. I'll make it a little bit bigger. You can see it starts at 12.5 and then 13.49. So why so much money in blockchain gaming? Well, there's so much money in gaming in general. As gaming, just think about it. All the kids playing games now or even 20 years ago now have money to spend, and they like spending money on entertainment. And so, fair to say, about 30 years ago, a lot of that money went into sports and therefore to sports athletes and other things. And that's still the case. But gaming has become a sport of its own, as well as something that people are willing to put money into. And so, gaming is continuing to grow. Blockchain gaming is going to change the face of what gaming is all about. So why did like Axie Infinity and Peg Axie, why did they do well? In fact, two other games I'll throw in there, Splinterlands and Gods Unchained. I did invest in Gods Unchained and made a really good return on Gods Unchained as well. Why did these do well? And what does the next generation of games that will do well have? Well, let's talk about Axie, which has been the number one gainer. Axie did well because it was one of the first blockchain games. Its playstyle was familiar to card game playstyles, but also, and not just card game styles, it was a turn based game, which in the early days of like phone gaming and even just gaming in general, like Sega and other things, it's an easier style to develop. And so that's done well, and people were used to that style. So it proved that there was merit to being able to make money playing a blockchain game because you could earn stuff. That stuff was actually yours. You could withdraw it, you could sell it. Though the model for Axie Infinity was very primitive, and I would suggest not sustainable, at least not the way it is now. And I think they understand that very deeply and are trying to make it more in depth. Essentially, you would battle your team of three Axies against theirs, and your Axies would take turns hitting theirs, and theirs would take turns hitting yours, and you could play different cards. But a very simplistic game, but it was the best developed game for the time period, and it caught on a lot. Essentially, you could earn, as you played, you could earn Smooth Love Potion. You earn more Smooth Love Potion for wins than you do for losses, and Smooth Love Potion is required for breeding. As the game grew, people were spending money to get a starting team because you couldn't play unless you had at least three characters or three Axies. The better the team, and sometimes they already had a starting team, but they figured out that they liked playing, and so they wanted a better team. So they were buying very specific Axies that had specific traits so they could have a team that won most of the time. So the demand for breeding was extremely high. That made it so that the demand for what you could earn by playing was extremely high. Smooth Love Potion. And once the game growth slowed, though, the returns for that Smooth Love Potion and what you could earn by playing dropped considerably. Peg Axie, I didn't participate in, but it was about racing your horse. Very good horses win for a lot of money, and you could win money by racing. Obviously, the more you won, the more you earned. And so that was their model, which, did well for a time, but not sustainable long term. Both Axie and Peg Axie were very primitive games, and they wouldn't have done well in a more developed ecosystem. But often rewards go to those games that are first and best out of the competition of what's there. If you think about it, in every situation, you don't have to be the fastest runner in the world to win. Let me give you a story or a joke my dad used to tell. Two men were out hiking in the Arctic, and they were walking along and doing their thing, and they look to the right and they see a dot that seems to be moving. As they keep hiking, they realize that dot is a polar bear. And one man takes off running, and the other one sits down and starts taking off his shoes. The one man who went running got a little ways, and he turns around and he comes back, and he's like, oh my gosh. The guy sitting down is now putting on running shoes. And he said, what are you doing? You're never going to be able to outrun that bear. And he said, I don't have to outrun that bear. I just have to outrun you. Now, how does this story relate? Well, it's because Axie was the best out of the competition that was in blockchain gaming, not the best out of the whole gaming world. Right now, the competition is within gaming world. Now, as this kind of competition does better, the blockchain gaming world, it will eventually compete with the gaming world. And that's when massive, massive funds will come in. What worked in 2020 isn't what's going to be working this year. And what works in 2023 and 2024 isn't going to be what works in 2027, which is just 5 years from now. By 5 years from now, blockchain gaming will probably start to rival regular gaming. It will no longer be an undiscovered gem, and it will no longer just be us crypto people heavily involved in it. It's when blockchain gaming will start to just be called gaming. Still just be a start. Really, it's going to be 10 years before blockchain owns gaming. So, what is the magic sauce of games that are going to do well? Isn't that a question we all have on our mind? Because if we're here, essentially, we're venture capitalist investors in blockchain gaming. We will get to that. But before I do, in order to know what games will do well in the medium term, let's think about what the long term looks like. What is it that games will look like when blockchain allows the power that it can? Well, frankly, it'll look a lot like World of Warcraft or Black Desert Online or EVE Online for a space genre. You'll be able to get item drops through like battling NPCs, and they'll drop things. You can then craft those drops into better items or better things. You can level up your skills so that what your item or character has better stats, or even cheaper costs in crafting or refining because you have higher skills. You can buy the materials you don't want to gather directly from the marketplace. A marketplace where the items, though, will have true value. Think about World of Warcraft, one of the most successful games of all time. It's a fantastic game. Tons of players, even now, 20 years later, tons of players still playing it. Why is it that those items don't have massive value? Well, they do have some value, but you have to trade them on the black market because the makers, Blizzard, does not open what they call their closed ecosystem, meaning they don't encourage trading for real money. In fact, if they find you doing it, they will say you violated their terms of service and cancel your account. So they have what's called the closed ecosystem. The reason why blockchain gaming is going to change the world is it encourages and embraces an open ecosystem. Why wouldn't you? Well, Blizzard wants to punish you if you quit playing so that all your stuff is still trapped in your account. They think of that as an incentive to come back and keep playing because you have so much time and money invested in it. Axie Infinity, how did they make billions of dollars? Well, by creating an open ecosystem, taking a small percentage fee on the transactions that happen. And they created a game where there's so many people playing that just their small percentage fee on the open ecosystem transactions were enough for the game maker to make billions. So they allowed the items to have true value, meaning value that was exchangeable in an open ecosystem for real world money. Now, on that note of true value, what does true value mean? Well, that is the heart of why there is and why there is and will be huge money in games. What is really being traded in games? I suggest that for the most part, what's really being traded is time. Second to that, it's sometimes scarcity or a flex. But it is time that gives these things so much real world value. And let me give you with a scenario. Let's say in a future game that is fully playable in maybe 8 years, it's an MMO. And your son bought an entry-level NFT character, and your son leveled him up to the top level over a period of 4 years. The stats were absolutely maxed. Your son played it maybe 5 to 7 days a week, several hours a day. And some person who is a doctor in their real-life job starts to get interested in the game. He finds out that he likes the game and is frustrated that his character stats are so poor. It's new, so he looks on the marketplace. And he finds that your son is now moving on to a different game, has put his character up for sale on the market with maxed out stats for $20,000. He thinks to himself, wow, man, to get those stats, I would have to play several times a week for at least 4 years to get those kind of stats. What I make it work for my hourly pay and the time that I would then have to play this, that value to me is at least 150,000, if not 300,000. So seems to me like a huge deal if I just paid $20,000 for this. Now, your son, who may have had a much lower time value on his own time than the doctor, is super excited that he just made $20,000 from playing a video game. In fact, he's telling all his friends how much he made, and they're all like, wow. Do you see where that's going and what that's going to be? And why there's going to be so much money in gaming. And then the games say just take a transaction fee every time these things change hands. So the game maker might have made like $4,500 on that, or not even that, $450 on that, on a $20,000 thing, or maybe $900, depending on whatever their fees are. But as this game gets tons of transaction, you see $900. How much do most games charge? Say this game is even free to play. And so an item change hands between two players. And now that game maker just made anywhere from $450 to $900. Wow. I mean, that is like, for a lot of games, that would be a subscription for like 3 years or a whole lot of sales of items. This is why the game makers will make a lot of money. This is why a lot of people will like the game, because they get to capture that value themselves. Another example of where some money might be, say the game Star Atlas or another space game comes out in about 8 years. Let's say it has a very good space mining component to it. Your character gets a drop of a very scarce and extremely efficient mining laser. If you don't play mining games, like, just stick with me. I know this gets a little bit deep in the weeds, but you personally don't mind very much in this game. You don't even care about that side of it, but there are players who do this exclusively. So you put that laser on the marketplace, and because it is so efficient, someone is willing to pay $8,000 for it. Why? Why in the world would they pay $8,000 for it? Well, because having the laser makes the time that they do spend mining more efficient. So they have to spend less time to mine the same amount. Are you getting the picture? Truly sustainable play to earn only works because the true value being measured is time. Now, second to that is scarcity, such as flexes. And they're also big for those with huge amounts of money, right? So some skins will be really big flexes, or some cosmetics, or something else just for the flex of value. So if the game takes off really big, then sometimes millionaires and billionaires play these games and they want those big flexes. So I would say the first most important component is time, and secondary to that are flexes. So let's talk about this secret sauce after we laid some foundation. Now, ingredient number one that is critical for a game to do very, very well is it has to have appropriate scaling of items and characters so that the time spent, especially efficient time spent, can be monetized. Make sense? I'll say that again. For a game to do really well, it has to have appropriate scaling of items and characters so that time spent, especially efficient time spent, can be monetized by the player in some way. See, Axie Infinity had some monetization. It was very, very basic. They don't have a lot of scaling of items and characters, though. That will have to come in other games. You see a lot of that in World of Warcraft or other things where you can develop your skills, and as you level up through gaining experience, your character becomes more and more efficient. What if you could sell those characters on a marketplace? In fact, not that you can't through World of Warcraft, but if you get found out, you get the accounts banned. So it only happens in black markets. What if that were all embraced by the game? Ingredient number two that is essential for a game to do like 1000x numbers is the game has to be fun. Axie Infinity did make 1000x numbers, but it wasn't very fun for me. It was just the funnest of the games that was out there. And probably for those during COVID, as a lot of things shut down during the pandemic, And for those even working like in dangerous factories, maybe in somewhere in the Philippines or other place, probably a lot more fun than that. Peg Axie, also more fun than some of the alternatives. And fun is important, but this ingredient will become more and more important as blockchain gaming becomes competitive and more games come out. The ones that are more fun to play, it makes a big difference. Ingredient number 3, good enough to attract regular gamers. Did you know that at Axie's peak, it only had 2.5 million daily active users? That seems like a lot, but is it? Yeah, let me show you the number of users for games presently. Share my screen here. And let's jump into this. Okay, so Honor of Kings. This is, I think, a China game published by Tencent. Has daily active players 100 million. Also, I don't even know, Chao Yi Chao, maybe. I may have pronounced that right or wrong. 100 million daily active users came out in January 2018. Garena Free Fire, and I might be slaughtering that name, 60 million. That came out in March of 2020, or I guess the release date was even 2017. Clash Royale by Supercell that made Clash of Clans, 50 million daily active users. So Axie at its peak, had up to 2.5 million daily active users. Do you notice this list doesn't even go down that far, with The Sims Social being 4.6 million daily players? Yeah, so Axie Infinity wouldn't have even made this list, and yet went to 1000x for those of us who invested early. All right. Some other ones, right? This just has the number of players. It doesn't tell us about the daily players. PUBG Battlegrounds. Wow. Is that 1.2 billion? It says 1,200 million, which would be 1.2 billion. Crossfire has 1,000 million, which would be a billion. Dungeon Fighter Online, 850 million. Minecraft, 738 million. Pac-Man Doodle, 505 million peak daily players. Wow, 505 million daily players. That is 200x over Axie Infinity's daily players. So do you see why there's huge money going to come into this space? But for the games that hit it well enough that they can compete for regular gamers' money. So which games are going to be the top? Well, that is hard to tell. Very hard to tell. Remember, we're essentially VC or venture capitalist investors in very early rounds. And I'll go over some of the top ones that are still pretty early in their development. So it's really hard to tell this early exactly how well the game is going to develop. All these ones that I'm going to go over have what I believe to be potential to be long-term players. I'm not invested in all of these, but many of them. And there are far more than just this small list. Let me share my screen as I'm just going to walk you through some of them. And they're in no particular order. They're definitely not in the order of like highest likelihood or anything, but Big Time's really interesting. They haven't had a token sale. They have had a sale of you can buy their time, and their time is necessary for, or excuse me, their space is necessary for like upgrading items and stuff. You can see there's already some earnable items. This legendary Warhammer starting at 2,450. This great sword of Sir Brunor, legendary, max supply of 100, starting at $1,800. To play right now, you do have to have like a VIP access pass that can get you into the early rounds where you can play and you can earn these drops. The longer term value of these items right now is pretty high, such few players. So it's kind of speculative on whether these will do really well or not. Some of them probably will, and some of them probably will not. Maybe they'll do really well because it's early gameplay. And that's why some people are willing to pay so much for this early access, 4,500. And then they go in and play and earn some of these items, and then they're selling them on the marketplace to people that don't have access to the game. Another game that I'm personally invested in, this is Litcraft and Experience. This isn't the actual gameplay here. This is just showing you essentially it's got in-depth economics behind it. There's lots of things that you can do with the game and specialize in becoming. There's lots of mini games and other things you can mine to unearth things. You can get really good at making pickaxes that makes people mining better. I like the depth of it. It's probably the deepest game that's out there in the blockchain space right now by far. Now, they've been working on this game for a long, long time. And they run this on their own blockchain called Devio, which can do millions of transactions per second. Another game that this is more like a game studio is Myria. And Myria doesn't have a token that you can buy yet. If you join their Discord and stay tuned, there is a way that you can invest in their nodes. And they're still pretty early round. The nodes you have to run on a simple computer or Amazon Web Service, and it'll give you a number of tokens per day. It's the same mechanism that way as Gala Games did. And the nodes Gala, I think, started out at about $5,000 or $10,000 and now go for hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to buy one. So Myria is they're doing a really interesting thing in that they're doing some games along the lines of successful games that are out there, but on the blockchain. So this looks like Pizza Tycoon. This might look like Farmville. This looks like probably along the lines of Counter-Strike. This is like PUBG. And then you have like a kart racer like Mario Kart. And so their first games are kind of in some ways leveraging off of existing games and the success of those existing games. And then they're going to develop more specific games and creative along what their line is, but making their own thing interoperable. The only two game makers really going that way so far are Myria and then Gala Games. Myria is a layer 2 of Ethereum, so they can leverage Ethereum's security. Gala's been out for longer, and these nodes, I think, first went on sale, the nodes that you could buy for the game, and that's how you get Gala tokens, other than just buying the Gala tokens. By running the node, you would get rewards, and not just Gala tokens, but also in some of the NFTs. And you can see some of these NFTs have pretty good value. Now, they're being sold for Gala tokens. And I think this is the game itself that's selling these at these prices. So they're asking for the Titan rare body. They're asking 11,000 tokens. I saw an epic body. There we go. 29,000. Now, I haven't played Spider Tanks. Here's a little bit of imagery on what Spider Tanks is all about. This is starting to be at the level that as gamers we really, really need, right? In order for it to be interesting to people outside the crypto space. All right. Another game that I've covered extensively is Cornucopias. Now, Cornucopias is one of the first AAA level games. It's being built on Cardano, and it'll later be compatible with other blockchains as well. But Cornucopias, watch one of my videos on Cornucopias. I cover them much more in depth. I've had several interviews with the founders to share with you what they're doing. Next one we're going to cover is Fight of the Ages. And you can see, so Fight of the Ages is a MOBA. In fact, if you've ever played a game called Dota 2, it is one of the most popular games in the world. There's Dota 2 and League of Legends. They're both, I wanted to show you the battlefield. Oh, this is just showing the characters, darn it. Looks a lot like, the battlefield looks a lot like League of Ancients. I think looks even more like Dota 2. So they're both MOBAs like League of Legends and Dota 2. Both these games, both FODA and League of Ancients. If you look at the little mini map up here in the corner, that looks a heck of a lot like Dota 2's mini map, where you're essentially a 5v5 playing. So 5 on your team against 5 on their team. You're defending your ancients. They're defending their ancients. This actually came out of Warcraft. And there's a long history on how Dota 2 came, and then they had to, for licensing reasons, change some names because it really came from Warcraft. And so League of Ancients, essentially, this is giving you ownership of your items, and the drops that you get are the cosmetics as well as your characters. And so League of Ancients and FOTA both are in that category. FOTA has something special in that they're working on augmented reality, as you see here, where you can drop your character down and, yeah, see their stuff. All right. Another game that I've covered and recently had an interview with the CEO is Cetus. Now, I call it Citus all the time. The CEO calls it Cetus, so clearly he's right on how to pronounce it. But interesting game. Is still very much in development. They are allowing you, it's really interesting, they allow you to invest in some of the modules within the game. So right now, open for investment, I think, is the scholarship area. And what it is you can play the game and earn some materials. And it's pretty basic levels of play right now. Earn some materials, or you can buy the Cetus token or the Senate token, and you can invest them in the module. As the module then makes revenues later on, as it's out, they will then share a percentage of those revenues with those that invested and built into the materials to build that module. Now, you don't have to buy the tokens to play. You do have to buy some NFTs, at least one of their NFTs, in order to play the game. And by playing the game, you can then earn some of the materials that you can invest in those modules. Really interesting setup to get some long-term buy-in. Well, that's cool. They have it following my cursor. Love it. All right, another game I've covered a lot is Ember Sword. Now, one of the biggest games of all time, the team that's developing this, they met and were the largest guild playing that game, and they thought about, if they were to make a game, how would they make it so that players would love to play it? And so they're the right team with a background. That's why I'm very big on this game. Now, in this game, you can't buy the token yet, but you can invest in land in it. What's interesting about the mechanism of this game is that the land will get a share of revenue of the marketplaces that are within a certain vicinity of it, as well as the drops that happen on your land. Is those then get traded, you get a percentage of the revenues. Now, it would, in order for the percentages that you're getting as a landholder to be significant, you would have to get millions and millions and millions of players. But as that happens, the value of that land will go up. Now, they're still pretty early stages. I did participate in the alpha a couple months ago, and it was fun. Ember Sword, one to watch out for. Illuvium, well, Illuvium is one of the ones that is looking exceptionally good. They just did a land sale. I still think the land is at a really good deal. They're going to be doing an alluvial sale soon. Great looking game. Interviewed Kieran Warwick, who is the CEO, about 8 months ago. I really like him. I think he's got the right focus to be successful with this. I think this has some of the secret sauce. You notice Ember Sword. I think they have the right team to, give it that fun and playability that you need. The scaling, or ingredient number one, could be here. Illuvium seems to be nailing it on some of the scaling, though we'll see. I think there's going to be leveling up your characters, or the illuvials that you catch, as well as there will be scarcity with those illuvials. Another game that I think has good potential is Decimated. I mean, we're all waiting for a really good first-person shooter game, and Decimated is focused on that space. Another one, I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker, is Star Atlas. I talked about them as a space game. There is so much room for space games to do well. They're very well funded. They raise a lot of funds through their token sales, as well as their early NFT sales. I think they'll be doing more NFT sales. So one to watch there. Talked about League of Ancients. Essentially, that's the end of our list there. League of Ancients, you can see, like, the tokens on almost all of the games that have tokens, the prices are way, way down. Watch some of my other videos where I often go about talking about how the market cap is a very important number to look at. This one doesn't show it, but I like to look at the fully diluted market cap. So to get that number, you see in circulation is about 11% of the tokens. So realize that the current market cap only reflects 11% of the tokens. So the fully diluted market cap, if all 1 billion tokens were in circulation, it would be about 8 times higher than that, a little over that. So this true market cap, the fully diluted market cap would be about 15 million, which isn't bad for a fully diluted market cap. You can see the token itself used to be over $1. It's now retraced, not just because the market's down, but secondarily because a lot of the pre-sale investor tokens are now vesting, and as they sell those, it puts price pressure on it going down, and has brought the price way down like this. This midterm period, not right at the initial launch, but a number of months later, is often a really attractive entry point on many of these projects. This is why right now is a great time to be looking for the gaming projects that you like the best that you'll invest in. Now realize I just covered some of what I'm invested in here. There are also games that might do well in the long term, but perhaps at a much higher risk. And these games might only do well in the next market upcycle. And I'm invested in perhaps as many as 30 of those. They're much riskier plays that could do well. They could do extremely well. They have really low market caps. So if money does come into the market and pumps them, they can do 100x and still have a relatively low market cap. Now, you're here watching this video, which means you are likely interested in blockchain gaming to either play or to invest in. If it is to invest in, you're starting your journey as a venture capitalist investor, and welcome. It's a very exciting place to be. You're somewhere between beginner level and expert level. The experts, like Animoca Brands, make absolute fortunes. The beginners, well, if you follow sound investing principles coupled with fundamental research and diversification, you'll have some winners and have some losers, but your winners will more than make up for your losers. Realize that even Animoca Brands invest in some projects that end up being losers. Now, personally, I've been investing in crypto for just 5 years myself, but prior to crypto, I did have 20 years investing experience, which has helped tremendously. All right, let's recap what we covered today. The secret sauce for some of the next 100x and possibly 100 or 1000x returns. The game must monetize time in a manner that makes sense. Has to be fun and it has to be good enough to attract regular gamers. And if they have those things, the returns could even be higher than 1000x. Remember, in anything, you're always bad before you're good. Think of each wrong move as your school towards becoming an expert venture capitalist yourself. Each right move, also a learning exercise, but you will notice you usually learn more from your wrong moves than from your right ones. Also, give yourself time to become good. Plan to be here for at least 5 years, if not 9 or more. Remember, the crypto market is slow right now. Just know that good decisions made during these pullbacks lead to life-changing ones when the market turns around. Now, I have a wrap. This wrap is for all of you to reinforce the principles that I share that make all the difference in higher returns. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you soon. If you haven't already, subscribe for more great information.
Into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit right before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. The next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge to gain. Show sticking out this road, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. They go with the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.